Hi everybody, it's Janette Ghedotte of Accurate Body Language. I am here with Miss Sweets and David Littmann, a handwriting expert. And David is going to be analyzing Miss Sweets' handwriting. David, can you tell us about your credentials?
Yes, I'm a certified graphologist and started studying the science of handwriting analysis back in 1999. So I've been at it a while and enjoy every moment of it.
Wonderful. And Miss Sweets, can you show the audience how you hold the pen? David, tell us about how she's holding the pen.
Well, notice how she has the structure of her fingers in support of the pen. Well, that gives her maximum flexibility in her movements, but it also prevents some of the writer's hump and other sometimes difficulties one has later with cramps.
Yes,
because she has better
cramps.
support and better flexibility. That's how to do it. Today, they're not being taught. Our students aren't being taught that way, and they'll pay for it later.
What are some other ways of holding the pen that aren't optimal? Show us.
Well, I've seen about everything. I see people like this, and they do this, they do this.
Yeah,
it's unreal. Well, the pressures are wrong, so they'll get the cramping, and no wonder they don't like writing. It's too hard, and it's not very healthy, frankly, for that individual's later years, arthritis and so forth.
And Miss Sweets, you said that you learned your beautiful handwriting from whom?
My dad.
Tell us about that.
My dad would spend hours with me as a child. We would sit and write. He would write loops on a paper, show me how the letters are supposed to be formed, and I would write underneath his. Now, there's a little bit of history behind that H, I will say, because his first name started with an H. So when we would practice writing, his first name was Henry. So he would make his H, and then I would make my H, and he would tell me, make your H better than my H.
I am amazed at that first letter H. Look at that H. Now, David, tell us a little bit about what you see in each of the letters, and tell us about the handwriting.
Well, the handwriting is well balanced. It has all the zones. You can see how the H moves up into the upper zone as it's supposed to, but especially high. So she's emphasizing the greeting, which is true of the whole writing. It's a very constructive, wants to be seen as a constructive, helpful individual. It has also the stroke, downstroke, it shows a backbone, an individuality, and a creativeness. Look at the release form here. So she has both psychological, the backbone, and the release of pressure. So that's very helpful. The second letter is equally fascinating because it shows a very individual who loves culture and the finer things in life. She didn't make just the copybook E. She made a Greek eta, which is a sign of a refinement and appreciation of culture.
And that has a significant meaning about the H in that it was your father's first letter of his name, Henry.
Right.
So you had a lot of practice since the age of what?
7, 8.
7 and 8 to perfect this H.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us more, David.
Well, one of the things you notice about this writing, look over here to the right margin. You can see how the right margin is narrowing. That means as she's writing, she's getting more comfortable, but it's also a sign that the paternal influence was very positive, because in handwriting, the right side is the future and the left side is the past. And if you look at an F like this, she didn't have to come back like that, but she did. And that says the past, she's thinking, subconsciously, that says she's thinking that the past is still a reference point, a very important benchmark.
And look at each one of her loops. Starts at that vertical left margin.
In fact, it moves.
It touches it.
That's right. So that's right. So that's a touchstone. It's exactly what it is. But the main thing is she doesn't stop prematurely here. It's not truncated here. It moves to the future, and you can only have confidence and of the future when your paternal influence, your father influence, has been there and is a support.
More the paternal than the maternal? You know, I'm a novice about all this, so...
Well, look at this. This is this the capital letter I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's called the PPI, the personal pronoun I. And what a graphologist does is look very closely at the many PPIs. In fact, we insist on having that in a handwriting sample.
She has several in here.
It's not just the beauty and the musicality of it, but take a look. This is called the paternal influence, this part of the stroke. Look how large that is compared to the maternal.
Large in your life.
Look at the maternal. The maternal is sharp here at the top, and that says a rather strict a maternal influence. But also, look what she's done here. It comes down. That says, when I had a chance, I had to go my own way. I had to break away from the past. Thank you, Mom. You did your job, but now it's my turn.
How much of this sounds true for you?
It is on point. It's
What?
incredible. That's why I keep looking at him. It's like, this is really on point.
We've never met.
Right.
This is our first meeting of all of us together.
Right. And
Oh
it
my
is
God.
so on point.
Well, please continue. Please
Yes.
continue, David.
Oh, I could go on forever. As a ratification of that remark, I want you to look at the K. These are individual letters now that I'm looking at, rather than what we call the gestalt or the whole picture. And then look at the word thank you down here. Look at how the buckle on the K goes beyond the middle zone here, moves into the upper zone. That's a person who, we sometimes use the word defiant, but what it really means is not afraid to go their own way.
Independent, self-assured.
See, you wouldn't expect that necessarily from the writing itself. It's beautiful, it's lovely, it's easy on the eye, it's relaxing, it's all of those things. But beneath the surface, which we can tell from some other things, she's saying, if I find a better way, I don't have any trouble exercising
That
it.
self-assuredness. I like you. And I want to tell you, you made such an impression on me through your writing before I even met you. So your writing tells the world about you before the people meet you, and you've had many, many compliments on your writing.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Now, back to this hello. Look at how big that H is compared to even the middle L's. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a start off. It's an introduction letter, and it's not just the H that you see going into the upper zone. It's the
flow.
embellishments here, which say, okay, that's my start off, but I want to make sure I get it right. If I'm going to do something, I want to make sure I do it thoroughly and correctly. And the other thing, just the size. That's how you're first known. She wants to be seen.
That's the very first letter of the
Yeah.
whole paragraph.
But look at the slant on it. It also says, I'm interested in others, not just myself. So I want to be helpful. I want to be viewed as constructive, both optimistic, constructive, and progressive. You can see that throughout the writings.
What about the L's being not that much taller than the E?
Well, you have to look to see if that L and if the other letters in the middle zone are somewhat that usually rise, like over here, the word letter. See, we don't quite see the top. So the fact is there's probably an emphasis on getting jobs done, tasks done that are doable today, rather than looking far, far into the future. Let's get what needs to be done completed. Another
Does
way.
it sound like you?
Another way to see that is take a look at this Y loop.
Okay, everybody take a look at the Y.
Look where it crosses. It crosses at the baseline. This being the baseline. That means you give me a task. Look over here. Look at this. Exciting. You see, she goes right back up to the baseline, which is today, the now, not yesterday or the future up in the top. And that says, you give me a task, I'm going to finish it. It will be completed.
I see you both nodding.
Yes, sir.
What kind of letters, tell us about some of the letters. What do you look for in the analysis?
Well, if you're just looking at single letters, of course, there are a lot of things. For example, when I see an R like that with a large prominent stem, probably is more so for females than males. Clothes are important. When you're selecting clothes, you want to make sure that you get exactly the right things. You're not going to skimp on that. See, here it is in wonderful. But again, that goes with the cultural appreciation of how things are, how they look. Form. Look at the form of the Gestalt, the total form. Look
it's beautiful.
That's right. It's fastidious. Make sure it's pleasing, and that's the hallmark. Look at the P. Do you see any stems or loops up in the stem? No, it's just so. If somebody is offensive, contentious, that's not going to be a friend. You don't want to waste your time in contentious people. Debating isn't. You don't have time for that. You've got more constructive, helpful things to do. Here, look at this. You see the I dot, how it's round? You got a kind of a ball. That's a person who probably is good at storytelling. Also can tell a very interesting story, and will remember. Look at how the punctuation is all there. That has to do with
her periods are pretty.
There's energy.
Energy.
That's right.
Prominent.
That's right. And the whole writing is lively. So there's a mental liveliness, an emotional liveliness, and a physical. The physical is the bottom line, the lower zone. So you see physicality as well. That's why I say it's a balanced writing.
Look at that J in my name.
Well, I look at the J, and I see the same pattern. But also, I want you to look at the size. There's only one other letter in this entire writing that even comes close, and that's the H, which you've already indicated. So, the size of a word, what stands out first, is something I often see, because that is their true interest. One of their basic interests at the time they've written. So whatever you're doing, she's interested. Very interested.
And you mentioned earlier humps, like in M's and N's and H's.
That's
Tell
correct.
us about the humps.
I look at the humps. If you're looking at a word, to get the thinking style, there are three main thinking styles: exploratory, analytical, and what we call serial or rational thinking. I'd say, okay, let me go with that. They tend to be more rounded. Okay, look at here. And I say if we get an H lower, here, look at the H over here. Okay, to the extent that this is what we call a slow, methodical, serial, rational thinker. They say to themselves, you want me to make a decision? Give me all the data, give me all the information, give me everything you got, then I'll make a decision. You're not going to pressure me to make one before that.
Miss Sweets is laughing and shaking her head, and her husband is agreeing with his body language. Look at this M, and where did it go?
Look at the M's there. So it's not all one way. She shows other flexibilities in thinking style, but that's what we do is we go with the most prominent, most frequently appearing style.
How about this M? Look at the second hump.
Right.
Is so flowy.
Well, yes, but this is, of course, a capital M. So we tend to look on the here and now more, and it is tend to be, the last hump is the one toward people, toward others, toward the future. So that says, you know, if I'm going to get feedback, I want to, again, make sure that I accept it. I'm not going to just hear it without reacting to it. So make sure it's what I need to hear, and that you're not covering up anything. I would say there's another thing. I look at, it's called in graphology, the Moretti system, where you look at the lowercase letters to see whether they're wider than they are tall. If you have a square, that's, you know, equal proportion. But to the extent letters like the N here, do you see that's a little bit narrower than it is wide? So there's a reserve. This isn't a person who's going to, again, thrust herself on others. There's a reserved nature, sometimes an inhibition, and so that's what that tells me.
I'm sure we have to earn her trust.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We have to have the goods.
What do you think of, what can you tell us about the flow and the rhythm and the introversion or the extroversion of her writing?
Well, she again combines the two. If you look at the loop like this, it says, yes, I don't mind being seen, and I'm also looking at myself. I'm going to cover myself a little bit. I'm going to protect myself. You see that? But I'm also aware of what's happened in the past. So those are the two elements of a backward motion, a final backward motion at the end of a word.
What does that mean?
Two things. Again, I'm going to protect myself, and
Like a covering up?
That's what it is.
Like you're covering your arm back, hugging yourself or something?
whatever, you know, psychologically, mentally, physically, that's right. But you notice it doesn't go back over the word. It goes up and starts back. So I've seen writing, and we've had a mayor in Detroit and a consort who did this. It went all the way back, and that means do not look any farther. That's called an arcade.
Yes.
And there you have
That's
something.
That's very telling.
And yes, it is, and you have to look for a lot of it before you can open your mouth as a graphologist.
Now, I want to show you something in her J. I see a J right here, and then all of this is even extra beautiful. What do you make of that?
Well, again, we call that an embellishment. So she wants this to be noticed, but it's corroborated here in the Ms. Right? So again, it's the symmetry, it's the orchestration, and the rhythm of it that she's trying to present.
You used the word orchestration when I first saw her handwriting. I said, I called you up, and I immediately gushed and raved about your handwriting, and I said, it's like a symphony. It's like a symphony of words, because there's flow in there, there's rhythm in there, there's music and beauty and art. And then after I said that, somebody else said that.
Yes, they did.
What did they say?
I was sitting at work one day and I crochet. So she told me the way that I move the needle and the way that I pull it back through the loop, I had symphony in the way that I used the needle. And I said, somebody told me I had symphony in my writing. Now you're telling me I have symphony in the way I crochet.
And guess what? You're using the same arm muscles, the same brain,
That's it.
and the same movement of intention. And David, anything else that you want to tell us about this beautiful handwriting?
What we look at is, again, the form, the movement, and everything we've talked about, and then the spacing. one of the things we take for granted sometimes, but the best way of identifying fraud or other problems is looking at the continuity of spacing. And to the extent the spacing is very even, it's very nicely done. So
What does that tell us about Miss Sweets?
very even, very well balanced. Excellent.
And as you were writing this paragraph, Miss Sweets, I just noticed how patient you are in writing it, how intentional she is in writing it, how she takes her time in writing each word, and really being mindful and intentional and in the moment. You don't want to get past it like it's a chore. You're really actually enjoying it.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it.
You can see it's effortless, the little strokes, the evenness of the, and she doesn't lose energy as it goes on. I mean, if this were a big effort, but she's learned to do this, it's in the mind, it's a routine. And look at this. Have you ever had calligraphy?
No, I haven't.
But I challenge any calligraphy.
I challenge anybody to try to forge her handwriting as well. You've got self-protection there. So what has this interview been like for you?
It's very exciting and it's enlightening because I've never met David before. This is our first time ever meeting, and to know that he can tell so much about me through my handwriting is remarkable.
As he was commenting on your loops and your flow and your rhythm and your letters and what he said, how did that land on you?
It landed right on point, right on base. I mean, with everything he said. Everything, even as far as the maternal and paternal.
Wow.
And that is something else because he never met my parents. But through that one letter, he spelled it out.
Which letter was that?
The I.
The I.
Yes, he spelled it out. Because that's just the way our relationship works. That's just how our relationship works. Right now. Yeah.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes, you can.
And that is, look at the T's. You see how they're what we call tied? They go up and then at this motion. That's persistence. Lots of persistence. You don't get that way without having a good discipline, self-discipline.
So handwriting, an individual's handwriting is really their personality on paper. It's almost like your fingerprint.
So if someone has messy handwriting, that means they're messy.
Well, I'd have to look at the circumstances. But, I mean, anybody can try to write messy, but that would offend you, I think.
Right.
Because you believe it should be written communication.
Right.
So in summary, David, what are the key points of this paragraph and the analyzing of this paragraph? In summary.
Well, in summary, we look for the strong points of a personality, what the preferences are, what the hot buttons would be, how the individual views him or herself. And it's a strong handwriting. Just the size of the personal pronoun I and the signature of the writer suggests that there's confidence and there's appreciation of oneself. There isn't a lot of second guessing. But most of all, I want you to see the continuity between the text, which is who you are, versus the signature, which is the persona, how you want to be seen by others. Which the continuity and it's congruous, meaning she's genuine. She is who she wants you to look at. She's not trying to hide who she is. She is what she is.
And what can you tell us about her introversion or extroversion elements?
Well, the slant and the size are your keys as the basic extroversion toward others.
Does she lean more towards introversion or extroversion based on this handwriting sample?
This sample would say extroversion. Now there's one qualifier, there are two actual. To the extent lines come down, that's called retracing. And to the extent some of, as I mentioned earlier, the letters are a little more narrow, so there's a reserve that goes along with that extroversion. So again, there's balance, and that's what we're looking for.
Thank you so much. And for some more information about David, can you tell the audience where they can contact you?
It would be Littmann, Littmannd, as in David, littmannd@aol.com.
And do you have a website?
Yeah, I have an app, Dave's Handwriting.
Lady Sweets and David Littmann, our handwriting
Thank you, sir.
expert of the day. Head to toes, the body always shows the truth.